Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a stack of sources spanning everything from high-level investment finance right down to the nitty-gritty psychology of sales.
hmm
And we're plunging into what might be the most critical asset any professional in real estate must cultivate: their networks.
Absolutely.
This whole deep dive is really built on one central idea, which honestly the sources prove over and over again. Your net worth is, well, quite literally determined by your network.
It sounds like a bold claim, doesn't it? But it's absolutely borne out by the research and experience. Real estate, it doesn't matter if you're flipping, holding rentals, or brokering deals.
Yeah,
It's fundamentally a relationship business.
right.
If you try to do it all yourself, relying solely on your own bandwidth, you've basically just capped your income and, maybe more importantly, your time.
So our mission today is to really analyze the systems, the human capital required to break past that ceiling.
Exactly. We're aiming to move beyond just, collecting a stack of business cards. We want to distill the practical steps, the roadmap for creating a genuinely supportive professional ecosystem.
We're bringing in more specialized partners, more use, effectively allows you to accomplish much, much more.
That's the core idea, leverage through relationships.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we even talk about who you need in that network, we really have to tackle the mindset, right? The approach you need to attract those high-quality connections in the first place.
hmm
So we're starting with what some sources call the core philosophy of attraction, often known as the ninja way.
Yeah, the ninja way, it's kind of revolutionary because it fundamentally shifts your perspective on how you engage with clients, with potential partners, everyone really.
How so?
Well, instead of the traditional, sometimes frankly aggressive sales approach, the core idea is stop actively selling.
Stop selling. That sounds counterintuitive for a sales-driven industry.
It does, initially. But the goal shifts. You stop pushing, and you start attracting high-quality clients and partners towards you. It's a pull, not a push.
Okay, so attraction. It's not magic then. It's a system.
Absolutely system. And that system relies entirely on consistently creating value for others. If you're not selling in the traditional sense, you have to be giving something meaningful.
So what does that value look like? What are you actually giving?
Value, in this context, is always created by addressing one of two core psychological levers. Either you're solving a problem for someone, what we often call relieving pain,
Right.
or you're enhancing their life in some way, making them feel good. That's creating pleasure.
But you can't really solve a problem if you don't understand it first.
Precisely,
Yeah.
which is why this strategy demands intense, non-judgmental listening. You have to understand their world first.
And how do we structure that listening? How do we get past the superficial stuff? Our sources mentioned a framework, FORD.
Yes, FAD. It's a classic for a reason. It helps guide the conversation away from just pleasantries and towards genuine human connection. It makes people feel truly heard.
So FORD stands for, remind me.
Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams.
Okay.
When you meet someone, you use these topics, not like a checklist, ticking boxes, but as gentle entry points into their world.
So asking about their family's needs, maybe challenges at work.
Exactly. What are their occupation pain points? What do they do for fun, for recreation? And crucially, what are their dreams, their aspirations? What really drives them?
And what you're listening for specifically is the signal of change. Is that right?
That's the golden nugget you're panning for. The signal of change. Are they talking about a new baby on the way? That's a family need. Are they frustrated with their current job situation? Occupation pain, saving up for a big overseas trip, recreation pleasure?
Got it. That signal of change is the trigger. Once you hear that maybe a planned move, a promotion, wanting passive income, that's when you pivot.
Right. But you pivot to demonstrating value, not pitching your services immediately. You offer information, a contact, maybe an insight that specifically addresses the change they just mentioned. You help them first.
And this whole philosophy, it ties perfectly into what's called the go-giver principle, right? The law of stratospheric success.
It really does. It highlights a paradox in business.
Hmm.
The most incredibly successful people often keep their primary focus squarely on what they're giving or sharing.
And somehow that focus on giving creates this magnetic force that pulls success back to them.
Exactly. It seems counterintuitive, but it works.
Okay, I have to jump in here because for a lot of people, especially starting out, that sounds, well, frankly, terrifying. If I just focus on giving away my time, my knowledge, my contacts, won't people just take advantage?
Mhm.
Aren't I just creating more competition for myself by sharing my secrets? What do the sources say about managing that risk?
That's a really common and understandable concern. It's why many people default to pushing or selling aggressively.
Hmm.
They're operating from a mindset of scarcity, thinking there's not enough to go around.
Right. Protect your turf.
But the sources, particularly those looking at, real business legends, they highlight that the opposite is often true. These highly successful individuals are frequently, almost surprisingly, willing to share their processes, their failures, even things you might consider proprietary secrets, sometimes with complete strangers.
Why would they do that?
Because the perception of generosity and competence they create by sharing usually far outweighs the potential loss from one person taking advantage or one deal going elsewhere. It elevates their entire brand. They understand the long game.
So the act of giving value first,
Yeah.
it's a long-term strategy built on establishing trust. It's like strategic generosity.
Just generosity. I like that.
Basically.
We even see this in really high-stakes situations like negotiations. The best advice is consistently pull, don't push. If you push too hard for an advantage, you just create resistance. People dig their heels in. But if you focus on demonstrating such clear, superior value that the opportunity naturally gravitates towards you, you pull the deal in your direction. That willingness to share up front is a massive trust accelerator.
And trust is the absolute foundation of any high-quality, long-lasting network.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so let's get practical. How do we build that trust through giving free value? If you're trying to build connections in your local community, what are some effective ways to apply this low-pressure, high-value strategy?
Well, one of the simplest yet most powerful strategies outlined is just teaching, sharing what you know.
Like giving presentations.
Exactly. If you're part of a local real estate investment club, maybe a chamber of commerce group or a professional association, volunteer to speak. Find a niche topic in it. Well, maybe optimizing STRs, navigating current market dynamics for first-time buyers, whatever your expertise is.
Okay.
But here's the crucial part, the absolute rule.
Yeah.
You must not pitch your services during the presentation.
No sales pitch at all.
None. Simply provide pure, unadulterated value. Answer questions honestly. Your goal is just to leave the audience better informed than when they walked in. Solve a small problem for them right there.
And what's the psychological effect of not pitching?
People approach you afterwards because you've instantly established yourself as an authority, someone knowledgeable. And critically, you've shown you're not someone who immediately tries to monetize every single interaction. That builds instant reputation and trust.
That makes sense. What else?
Another incredibly powerful strategy is to become a connector.
Being the hub, the person who knows everyone.
Yes. Be the nexus. Start a small, maybe highly focused networking group yourself. Invite a curated mix of professionals you respect, maybe a great title officer, a reliable conventional lender, a top-notch contractor, perhaps other agents specializing in different niches or areas.
So you create the space for them to connect.
Exactly. By creating a space where they can meet, share referrals, and grow their own businesses, you automatically gain this amazing reputation as the trusted facilitator. You become the person who made success possible for others. It positions you right at the center.
And presumably, for those who are maybe more introverted or prefer the digital realm, things like blogging or creating online content serve a similar purpose.
They absolutely do. It lets you teach what you know, share your journey, your insights, your story, and build up that essential trust and reputation, but potentially at a much larger scale.
Consistency is key there, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. Whether it's showing up consistently online with valuable content or consistently hosting your networking group in person, you're positioning yourself as a resource, a go-to person, not just another salesperson. And that fundamentally is the difference between attracting high-caliber, long-term connections and constantly feeling like you're hunking for the next marginal lead.
Okay, so we've established the right mindset. Give first, focus on attraction, build trust. But let's face reality. If you actually succeed at attracting business, you inevitably hit an operational wall, don't you?
You absolutely do. That's almost the signal that the attraction phase is working.
Right. And that signal means it's time for stage 2, building out your strategic team ecosystem, or, as the sources often call it, achieving leverage.
Exactly. The moment you become effective at those first 2 L's, leads and listings, you inevitably create the necessity for leverage. You'll have more business than one person can possibly handle.
Which is a great problem to have.
The best problem.
Yeah.
But it absolutely demands leverage. We define leverage by the who, how, and what of your real estate operations. For an investor, for instance, trying to do it all yourself massively increases your liability and limits your expertise. Mitigating those potentially critical mistakes, especially early on, requires surrounding yourself with knowledgeable experts from day one.
Makes sense. Let's start with probably the most critical component of that team, strategic financial partners. Access to capital really dictates the speed and scale of your growth, doesn't it?
It's the fuel in the engine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We need to detail maybe three specific categories here, starting with the group often associated with higher risk but also higher speed. Hard money lenders or HMLs.
HMLs are definitely crucial, particularly for flippers or anyone needing to close very quickly. These are typically private individuals or specialized lending groups. They focus on higher risk deals. Think properties needing significant rehab.
Asset-based lending mostly.
Primarily asset-based, yes. They're looking more at the property's after-repair value than maybe the borrower's pristine credit score. The trade-off is much higher interest rates and fees. Their immediate value proposition is speed and flexibility, where conventional banks might say no or move too slowly.
But you mentioned earlier their deeper strategic value, beyond just the loan itself, is actually in networking. You said they're a terrific source of referrals to cash buyers. Can you walk us through that win-win-win loop again? Because it's not immediately obvious.
Okay, think about it from the HML's perspective. What's their core business?
Lending money on deals, getting it back with interest.
Right. They are constantly lending money to investors, often flippers, who buy, fix, and sell properties. Now, these investors are always hunting for their next deal. They need deal flow to keep borrowing from the HML.
Okay.
So if an HML connects one of their successful, reliable investor clients with you, maybe you're a highly productive agent finding off-market deals. Or a wholesaler with good inventory, what happens?
The investor gets a deal.
The investor gets access to needed deal flow. You, the agent or wholesaler, potentially get a quick closing, maybe a commission or assignment fee.
And the HMO.
The HML gets to fund that investor's next deal faster because the investor found a property quickly thanks to you. This means the HML earns more interest and fees more often. They start to see you as an engine that helps generate future loan volume for them. So by being a reliable source of deals for their borrowers, you become valuable to the lender. Precisely. You become a valued part of their business development machine. That's the win-win-win. Your reliability feeds their bottom line.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, moving from the fast, expensive money to the more, well, conventional route.
Right, conventional mortgages. These are really the bedrock of the residential housing market. They're the loans most typical homebuyers use, and they generally offer the lowest available interest rates.
But for investment properties.
For investment properties, the rules are usually tighter. They typically demand higher down payments, often 20%, sometimes 25%, or even 30%. And lenders often have stricter limits on how many investment property mortgages one individual can hold simultaneously. So, less leverage, slower process, but cheaper money if you qualify.
Got it. And the third avenue, which sounds potentially lucrative but requires careful navigation, is private money.
Yes, raising money from private individuals. This is where specific people, maybe friends, family, colleagues, other investors you network with, lend their personal cash directly to you for your deals, secured by the property itself at an interest rate you both agree on.
And the benefit.
It can often be one of the cheapest and fastest sources of capital, especially if you have strong relationships. However, and this is a huge caveat, raising private money is highly regulated by securities laws.
Right, the legal side.
You absolutely must adhere strictly to federal and state regulations. This often involves filing specific exemptions, providing detailed disclosures. It's not just a casual loan. Neglecting this aspect can lead to really significant legal and financial trouble. Consulting with an experienced securities attorney is completely non-negotiable here.
That sounds like wise advice. Speaking of combining resources, partnerships are often described as the ultimate form of leveraging both human capital and cash. The sources detail that common model. The money partner, sweat equity partner.
Yeah, this is a classic structure, especially ideal for someone starting out who has the skills, the hustle, the time, the sweat, but maybe lacks the capital or the borrowing capacity.
So one person brings the cash.
The money partner typically obtains the loan, provides the down payment, covers the rehab costs. They take on the majority of the direct financial risk.
And the other person.
The sweat equity partner brings the operational expertise. They find the deals, manage the contractors, oversee the day-to-day project management, handle the marketing and sale, or the tenant placement and management if it's a rental. It's a structured trade. Capital in exchange for labor, expertise, and deal finding.
And here, again, we absolutely have to hammer home that foundational legal point. When people start a partnership, there's usually tons of enthusiasm, Goodwill, lots of handshakes, maybe a quick agreement sketched out. Why do the sources insist, really insist, on getting an attorney to draft formal partnership terms, even if everyone feels totally comfortable with just a handshake?
Because that partnership agreement, it's not really written for when things are going great and everyone's happy.
It's for when things go wrong.
Exactly. It's written for the inevitable disagreements, changes in circumstance, or unexpected problems. What happens if one partner suddenly needs to exit the deal? What if one partner gets seriously ill or passes away? What if there's a major disagreement on strategy, like whether to sell or refinance? Who has the final say on a big unexpected repair expense?
All the messy what ifs.
All the messy what ifs. A well-drafted legal agreement, created by an attorney who understands real estate partnerships, ensures these exit clauses, decision-making protocols, and contingency plans are clear, legally sound, and enforceable. It's essential protection for the asset, the investment, and honestly, often the relationship itself. Skipping it is just foolishly optimistic.
Point taken.
Yeah.
Okay, financial team covered. Let's shift to the equally critical service and support network, starting with protection, the insurance broker. Why is a specialist so important here?
Because your insurance needs as a real estate investor or even as a high-volume agent are way more complex than a standard homeowner's policy. The sources strongly urge discussing your specific situation with a competent broker who specializes in business and investment property insurance.
Not just any agent who sells insurance.
Definitely not. An experienced specialist is invaluable. They don't just shop for the lowest price on a generic policy. They understand the unique risks. They ensure you get the right specialized coverage, things like builder's risk insurance for flips, proper liability coverage for rentals with tenant-occupied risks, maybe loss of rents coverage.
And they can often find that better coverage at a reasonable cost.
Often, yes, because they know the markets and the right carriers. But maybe even more importantly, when a claim does inevitably arise a fire, a major liability issue, they know how to navigate the claims process effectively to secure the fullest possible payout with the least amount of conflict. They advocate for you, protecting your cash flow right when you need it most.
Okay, crucial. Next up, the real estate agent. Seems obvious, but why are they so central to an investor's network?
Good agents, especially those experienced with investors, are worth their weight in gold. This is particularly true if you're investing in markets outside your immediate local area where you don't have boots on the ground.
What makes them so valuable?
A high-performing agent isn't just someone who lists properties. They are surrounded by their own extensive network. They know the pocket listings. They hear about deals before they hit the MLS. They know the reliable inspectors, lenders, contractors in that specific market. They find the properties, they market them effectively if you're selling, and they expertly manage the incredibly complex transaction process from offer to close. They are your eyes, ears, and chief negotiator on the ground.
So if I am investing out of state, I probably can't rely on a personal referral from my local circle to find that star agent. How do I effectively vet someone remotely?
That's where you have to put on your digital detective hat. You leverage online research strategically. Look at online reviews, yes, but don't just count the stars. Read the comments. Look for recurring themes that specifically mention working with investors, finding off-market deals, understanding cash flow analysis. You're essentially looking for testimonials from people like you.
Treat online reviews as referrals from strangers.
Exactly. Once you identify a few promising candidates based on that research, you interview them. Don't be shy. Ask pointed questions directly related to your needs as an investor.
Like what?
Things like, how many investment properties did you help clients purchase last year? What percentage of those were off-market deals? Can you describe your process for analyzing cash flow on a potential rental? What's your experience with 1031 exchanges? You want to hear answers that demonstrate they truly understand the investor's mindset, priorities, and language, not just the typical homeowner's concerns.
Good advice. Okay, that brings us to what many investors cite as one of their biggest ongoing headaches: finding and managing contractors and rehab teams. The sources mentioned a specific vetting strategy here designed to ensure you hire someone who thinks like a partner, not just a vendor trying to maximize their own profit.
Yes, this strategy is quite clever. It's fundamentally about forcing the contractor to prove they actually listen and understand your goals before they start talking price.
How does it work?
When you're getting bids for a project, you send the potential contractors to the property. But, and this is key, you don't initially tell them exactly what specific tasks you want done.
So you don't give them a detailed scope of work right away.
Not right away. Instead, you give them your overall goal for the property. For instance, you might say, my goal here is a bare bones, durable, renter-ready rehab. Clean, safe, functional, nothing fancy. Or conversely, my goal is a high-end remodel targeting modern retail buyer expectations in this specific neighborhood.
Okay, you give them the strategic objective.
Right, and then you ask them to walk the property and write up a bid based on achieving that stated goal.
Ah, so if I tell them the goal is bare bones rental rehab and they come back with a bid detailing granite countertops, crown molding, and high-end fixtures,
Hmm.
what does that tell me?
It tells you immediately that they either weren't listening or they just defaulted to their standard upsell everything mode, or maybe they're focused on maximizing their own profit or speed without actually considering your specific investment criteria and budget constraints.
So you're looking for the bid that actually reflects the goal you stated.
Precisely. You need contractors who can see the project through the investor's financial lens. The goal isn't just to make it look nice. The goal is usually maximum return on investment for the minimum necessary expenditure to achieve the specific market target. The contractor who submits a tailored bid, proving they understood the bare bones requirement and itemize accordingly, is far more likely to be the partner you need.
That's a great filter. And for really specialized, high-risk work like foundation repairs, the sources sound a pretty clear warning bell.
Oh, absolutely. For any major structural work foundations, load-bearing walls, significant roof restructuring, the advice is unequivocal. Consult a qualified independent structural engineer before the work begins.
Not just relying on the repair company's assessment.
Definitely not. Get an independent engineer's report and plan. This is non-negotiable insurance for your investment. Furthermore, you must insist on obtaining a written, detailed, and preferably transferable warranty on that kind of major work.
Why transferable?
Because it not only protects your investment while you own it, but it also makes future potential buyers much more comfortable, significantly easing the eventual resale process. A foundation warranty can be a major selling point.
Makes sense. Okay, our final support pillar in this section. Managing the network specifically for rental operations, particularly for the fast-paced world of short-term rentals, or STRs.
Right. With STRs, your core operational team often boils down to just a couple of key people: your housekeepers and your handy people or maintenance crew.
And the housekeeper role is particularly critical.
Arguably, yes. Because STRs rely so heavily on rapid turnovers, perfect cleanliness, and flawless presentation for those crucial 5-star reviews, your housekeeper is probably your most valuable non-monetary asset that can make or break your STR business.
So how should you manage that relationship? The sources mentioned grace.
Yes, grace is key here. Because turnovers are often incredibly tight, sometimes back-to-back, and humans make mistakes. If a reliable housekeeper, who generally does great work, misses a single cleaning or forgets one specific item from your checklist, the advice is to treat them with grace, especially if they acknowledge it and try to fix it immediately.
Why is that so important? Seems like you'd want perfection.
Because finding, vetting, and training a good, reliable housekeeper is incredibly difficult and time-consuming. Burning through a valuable team member over a single, fixable human error is incredibly short-sighted. It could cost you weeks of searching for a replacement, lost booking revenue during that time, and potentially negative reviews. The cost of retaining a good, motivated housekeeper, even with occasional grace, is almost always far lower than the cost of constantly replacing them. You need them happy and loyal.
Okay, good perspective. And the final dose of realism concerns property managers for longer-term rentals.
Yet owners need to internalize a somewhat harsh reality about third-party property managers. They are typically managing dozens, maybe hundreds of properties. It is not their property.
So their motivation is different.
Fundamentally different. Statistically and understandably, they will likely only do the bare minimum required to fulfill the contract and keep collecting their fee. They won't care about it with the same passion and attention to detail that you, the owner, would.
So what's the takeaway for owners?
You have to accept that gap. There will be a difference between your ideal standard of care and the manager's typical minimum standard. If you cannot accept that difference without constantly stressing or feeling frustrated, then self-management, despite the significant time commitment, might genuinely be your only viable path to maintaining your sanity and standards.
All right, we've philosophically aligned ourselves with giving value. We've strategically assembled the core team. Now we get to the engine room. How do we make sure this whole network, this whole operation, runs smoothly, consistently, and actually fosters growth?
This is where systems and operational habits become absolutely paramount.
It's the execution piece.
It really is. The entire purpose of meticulously building systems, creating checklists, defining clear criteria, having support staff follow documented processes using automation tools is fundamentally simple. It's to allow more people into your world to help accomplish your objectives, effectively acting as extensions of yourself.
So systems equal scalability.
Exactly. Without robust, documented systems, your team, your leverage, it all just collapses into chaos the moment you step away or get overwhelmed. Systems provide the structure for consistent execution.
And systems are only as good as the reliable habits that actually drive them day to day. The sources define habits in a really useful way. They're reliable solutions to recurring problems in your environment.
That's a great definition. And it highlights that forming a good habit isn't usually instantaneous. It's typically a continuous feedback loop.
Describe that loop.
There, you try an action, like making daily prospecting calls. Maybe you fail or find it difficult. You learn why it was hard. Maybe the time of day was wrong, or you didn't have a script. You try differently next time, and this loop gradually reinforces the useful actions until they become more automatic, requiring less conscious effort and willpower.
And to help accelerate that habit formation process, we can look to the 4 laws of behavior change, which are:
Make the desired habit obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
and applying these laws points towards a fundamental shift in focus, doesn't it?
It really does. The focus shifts towards building better systems rather than just setting bigger goals.
Explain that distinction. It sounds important.
Well, think about it. If you're consistently struggling to reach a goal, say, closing 50 deals this year, the problem is almost never a lack of desire for the goal itself. The problem is usually with the system you have in place to achieve it.
So the goal is the outcome. The system is the process.
Precisely. The goal is the 50 closed deals. The system might be the daily habit of making 20 new contacts, following up with 10 past clients, and meticulously logging everything into your CRM. If you improve the system, make the contacting easier, more attractive, more satisfying, the goal of 50 deals often starts to take care of itself as a natural byproduct. Focus on the process, not just the prize.
Okay, that makes sense. And to manage the expanding network of contacts, leads, partners that these systems generate, one tool is repeatedly highlighted as absolutely essential.
Your database, your CRM customer relationship management system. The sources are emphatic about this. Your ability to create, maintain, and consistently use a solid contact management database is perhaps the single biggest mechanism that will cause your professional growth to explode.
So agents really need to master programs like Top Producer, ACT, Goldmine, or whatever modern equivalent they choose.
Absolutely. It's non-negotiable for serious growth because your database isn't just a static list of names and numbers. It's the living, breathing heartbeat of your entire lead generation and relationship management model. It should contain all that valuable fil-pour-di information you gathered: birthdays, transaction history, communication preferences, everything.
And this well-maintained database feeds directly into the next crucial operational element: effective communication. The sources stress this is vital for both sales and retention, especially with tenants.
Oh, definitely. Research consistently shows that poor communication or lack of responsiveness is one of the absolute top reasons why tenants choose to move out.
Which is expensive for landlords' vacancy, turnover costs.
Hugely expensive. Landlords simply must maintain open, timely, and transparent communication with their residents. If you ignore a repair request or fail to answer a simple question promptly, that tenant feels ignored, disrespected, and devalued. That directly leads to churn. Consistent, respectful communication builds loyalty.
And that same principle of transparency is equally vital in the sales cycle, particularly when dealing with sellers, right? Especially around difficult conversations like price reductions.
Yes, this is a classic pain point. A real estate agent absolutely must maintain consistent communication with their sellers throughout the listing period. You can't just list it and disappear for 30 days, then suddenly reappear demanding a $20,000 price cut because it hasn't sold.
The seller feels ambushed.
Completely ambushed, likely unrepresented, and understandably resentful. They'll resist the necessary change because they haven't been part of the process or understood the market feedback along the way. Price is almost always the primary factor preventing a well-marketed home from selling. But the agent has to build the trust and provide the market data consistently, day by day, week by week, so that the seller understands why the market is dictating that change. It needs to be a collaborative conclusion, not a dictatorial demand.
Okay, so consistent database use, consistent communication. These are essential habits. But life gets busy. How do we make sure we actually do these things consistently? We need efficiency. Let's talk about overcoming friction and that simple but powerful 2-minute rule.
Right. The primary goal of good systems design is often just reducing friction, making the right behaviors easier to do than the wrong ones. The 2-minute rule is a fantastic psychological hack to overcome procrastination and build momentum for those essential but sometimes unappealing habits.
How does it work?
The rule is downscale any new habit you want to build until the very first step can be done in 2 minutes or less. The key insight is you're not trying to achieve the ultimate result in just 2 minutes. You're simply making the act of starting incredibly, almost laughably easy.
Can you give us a concrete real estate example?
Sure. Let's say your desired habit is write one new blog post for my website every week. That might feel daunting, maybe takes 2 hours. Applying a 2-minute rule, your new initial habit becomes simply open my laptop, log into the website's content management system, and write just the headline for the post. That takes less than 2 minutes.
Okay, I see. Or if the goal is make 20 prospecting calls daily.
The 2-minute rule version might be open the CRM to the call list and dial the first number, or even just put on my headset. The point is to master the art of showing up. Once you cast that tiny vote for your desired identity, being a writer, being a prospector, by completing the 2-minute start, you build momentum.
And then you gradually increase the difficulty.
Exactly. That's called habit shaping. Once the 2-minute start becomes automatic, you incrementally scale the behavior back up towards the original goal. Maybe next week you write the headline in the first sentence, the week after, the first paragraph. You make it slightly harder each time, but always building on that initial easy start.
That really shifts the focus from hitting some huge goal immediately to just being consistent with the process, which brings us neatly to the final element of operationalizing the network: accountability. The sources define this really powerfully, not as being about consequences or blame, but as ownership.
Yes, that definition is absolutely crucial, especially for leadership and personal growth. So many people fall into the trap of waiting for external factors to change before they take action. I'll invest when the market corrects. I'll prospect more when my broker gives me better leads. I'll start saving when I get a raise.
Blaming circumstances.
Exactly. That's the pitfall. True accountability, as the high performers define it, is taking ownership of the outcome, regardless of the circumstances. It's making the internal choice to do what is necessary to achieve the goal, often long before any external results arrive to validate that decision. Greatness comes from that internal locus of control.
So, when managing teams, how should leaders apply this ownership mindset effectively? The sources emphasize focusing on activity-based indicators, ABIs, rather than just results-based indicators, RBIs. Why is this distinction so critical?
This is a classic management mistake,
Yeah.
focusing only on the lagging indicators. RBIs, things like number of closed deals, total gross commission income, GCI,
Yeah.
profit margins, they tell you what already happened. They're results from the past. You can't coach the past.
Right.
ABIs, on the other hand, tell you what your team members are doing right now that will directly influence future results. These are the lead indicators, the activities you can actually control and coach in the present.
And for real estate teams, ABIs are typically things like
Usually, they tie back to fundamental, controllable contact and engagement activities. Number of new contacts added to the database daily, number of outbound prospecting calls made, number of appointments set, listing appointments, buyer consultations, number of open house visitor follow-ups, hours spent actively door knocking or circle prospecting, things you can actually do.
So, if a team member missed their RBI target, closed deals last month, the coaching conversation shouldn't just be, you missed your target. It should be about diagnosing the shortfall in their ABIs.
Precisely. Okay, you missed the closing goal. Well, let's look at your activity numbers. It looks like the number of appointments you set dropped significantly 3 weeks ago. What happened there? What obstacles did you face? How can we adjust your process or provide support to get that appointment number back up this week? You can't coach a past result, but you absolutely can coach the daily activity that drives future results.
That makes coaching much more actionable. Finally, for a goal to truly motivate an entire team, the sources say it needs to be a viral goal. What does that mean?
A viral goal is one that resonates because it's about everyone's success and growth, not just the team leaders or the company's bottom line. It has to connect to individual aspirations and provide meaningful growth experiences for each person.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a high-performing lead buyer specialist on a team. They consistently hit their personal sales targets. A viral goal approach might involve allowing them, once they hit a certain level, to optionally scale back their personal gross commission income goal slightly. in exchange for the opportunity to start mentoring junior agents and earning a small override on their team's production.
Ah, so it offers them a different kind of growth.
Exactly. It provides potentially better work-life balance, develops their leadership skills, and shifts their motivation from being the individual rock star to becoming a rock star maker. It aligns their personal growth path with the team's overall expansion. That kind of tailored growth opportunity is what makes a goal truly viral and motivating for the whole team. Hashtag tag season pound FEV. Financial and market context for strategic networking.
Okay, we've built the operational engine with systems, habits, and accountability. Let's zoom out now and place this whole professional infrastructure within the larger financial and market context it operates in. Starting with the absolute basics of financial literacy. The sources draw a really clear foundational distinction between being wealthy and just being rich.
Yes, and understanding this distinction fundamentally dictates your long-term strategy. Being rich is often defined as simply having a lot of money, maybe a high income. The problem, as many high earners discover, is that the money often stops coming in the moment you stop actively working.
The golden handcuffs.
Could be. Financial wealth, on the other hand, is typically defined by owning income-producing assets, things like businesses that run without your daily involvement, or real estate that generates cash flow. These assets generate money for you, allowing you the option to stop working while the income continues.
So the simple, non-negotiable rule for building wealth.
Rule #1, according to many sources. Know the critical difference between an asset, something that puts money in your pocket, and a liability, something that takes money out. And then dedicate your life to buying assets. It sounds simple, but it requires discipline.
And achieving that level of financial intelligence, it's not innate, right? It's a skill set that needs to be developed.
Absolutely. It's composed of several technical abilities that need to be practiced consistently, almost like training a muscle.
Such as?
Key skills include accounting, the ability to actually read and understand financial statements, profit and loss, balance sheets. You need to speak the language of money. Second, purposeful management of your personal budget. You need to control your spending to maximize the funds available for investment. And third, the disciplined habit of consistently tracking your personal net worth.
Why is tracking net worth so important?
It's considered almost sacred by many successful investors, like the millionaire real estate investor model emphasizes. Because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it or improve it. Tracking your net worth forces you to confront reality and see if your actions are actually moving you towards your wealth goals.
Okay, foundational financial literacy covered. Now, let's talk about the larger forces impacting real estate, specifically macroeconomic factors and sometimes the, shall we say, unintended consequences of government policy. The history of the 2008 housing bubble provides a stark example here of misaligned incentives, doesn't it?
It's a crucial and painful lesson in systemic risk and incentives. The sources point out that under political pressure from Congress to significantly increase home ownership rates across the board, agencies like the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, were directed to guarantee mortgages for borrowers with lower incomes and weaker credit profiles.
The stated goal was positive increased homeownership.
The stated goal was laudable, yes, provide affordable housing opportunities. However, a key consequence was that because the FHA and other government-sponsored enterprises like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guaranteed these mortgages against default, the originating lenders had significantly less skin in the game. Their incentive to rigorously underwrite the actual risk of the loan was greatly diminished.
So the government essentially took the default risk off the table for the private lenders.
To a large extent, yes. This created what economists call moral hazard. It directly contributed to a situation where many mortgage loans were made to people who realistically did not have the stable financial wherewithal to service that debt, especially once introductory teaser rates reset to higher levels.
And the scale of this was massive.
Huge. By 2010, analysis showed that nearly two-thirds of the bad mortgages polluting the financial system had been either directly made, purchased, or guaranteed by government agencies. So, the argument goes, the government failed in two critical ways. It failed as an effective regulator of the lending industry, and it actively contributed to inflating the bubble by creating perverse incentives that encourage risky lending on a massive scale.
That issue of government policy influencing real estate values and access continues right down to the local level today, particularly through zoning regulations. We really have to acknowledge the significant and often quite painful history of exclusionary zoning practices.
Yes, zoning is a powerful tool. Historically, its stated purpose was often to protect the property investments of existing homeowners and maintain community character by separating land uses, keeping factories away from houses, for instance. That's basic Euclidean zoning.
But it was often used for other purposes.
Indeed. Exclusionary zoning tactics, things like mandating large minimum lot sizes, prohibiting multifamily dwellings, setting high minimum square footage requirements, were often designed, sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly, as devices for wealthier, established suburbs to keep out lower-income people and, by extension, industries perceived as undesirable.
And the sources directly link this to social and racial inequality.
Yes, unfortunately, the history shows that class snobbery and racial prejudice were often inextricably linked in the application of zoning. It became a powerful legal mechanism allowing existing homeowners within certain arbitrarily drawn community boundaries to effectively exclude others, particularly minorities and the poor.
And the economic consequence.
By severely restricting the supply of smaller, denser, lower-cost housing options in desirable areas. These practices artificially inflate home values in those privileged areas, making them inaccessible to many. We also see perverse outcomes when policymakers try to fix the resulting affordability problem. For example, implementing strict rent control, while intended to help tenants, can actually disincentivize the construction of new affordable rental housing, diverting investment towards building luxury condos or other non-rent-controlled properties that offer a higher potential rate of return for developers. Incentives, as always, tend to trump stated goals.
It's a complex interplay. Okay, shifting back from the macro context to the individual investor's action plan. Before you even start leveraging your network to find deals, the sources insist you must clearly define your personal investment criteria.
This is absolutely fundamental. It's your operational checklist, your filter for opportunities. Before looking at any property, you must clearly define several key things for yourself.
Such as,
what is the minimum required discount you need from the current market price to make the deal viable? What is the specific monthly or annual cash flow you expect the property to generate after all expenses? What level of appreciation are you realistically hoping for over your intended holding period?
and you also need to consider the risk factors.
Critically, you have to factor in the hassle factor, how much time, effort, and stress will be involved in managing this specific property and its potential tenants. And also liquidity. How quickly and easily could you convert this asset back to cash if you needed to? Considering all these factors, discount, cash flow, appreciation potential, hassle, and liquidity, helps you determine the specific price range and property type you should be targeting.
And the key is being disciplined about sticking to those criteria.
That's what separates savvy investors from speculators. They are picky buyers. They are perfectly willing to analyze and walk away from 100 marginal or okay deals to wait patiently for that one great deal that truly hits all their predefined criteria. Discipline equals profit in the long run.
Okay, finally, let's bring this all back full circle to communication and relationships by looking briefly at negotiation tactics. Skilled negotiators, the sources suggest, understand that it's not just about haggling over the price number. Subtle psychological currents are often more important. There's a crucial tactical goal mentioned that goes beyond just getting a concession.
Yes, this is a really powerful, deep insight, often associated with techniques like tactical empathy. The immediate tactical goal in a challenging negotiation isn't necessarily to get the other side to agree with you or concede a point. Instead, it's to summarize the situation, or their perspective, or their perceived problem, so accurately and empathetically that they respond with the words, "That's right."
That's right. Why those specific words?
Because when someone says, "That's right," it signals that they feel genuinely understood on a fundamental level. They feel you've grasped their position, their constraints, their reality. It creates a moment of connection, alignment, and significantly lowers defenses. Tactical empathy is achieved. Trust solidifies in that moment.
And what if they just say, "You're right"? Is that different?
It's fundamentally different, and recognizing this nuance is key. If they say, "You're right," it's often a polite way of conceding a point, maybe even surrendering temporarily, but it doesn't necessarily mean they feel understood or aligned. They might still resent the situation or feel pushed.
That's
It
correct.
comes from a deeper place of feeling heard.
Wow. Okay. And once you achieve that "that's right" moment,
Then you're in a much better position to collaboratively solve the problem, like the price gap. You can then potentially use techniques like auction solutions, making incremental adjustments to your offer, maybe raising or lowering slightly, and watching their reaction closely to gauge where their true comfort level or limit actually lies. But achieving that initial "that's right" through tactical empathy is often what unlocks the potential for a truly successful relationship-preserving negotiation. Hashtag tag outro.
We have certainly covered a huge amount of ground today. I
Yeah.
think we've effectively unpacked the idea that long-term success in real estate, it isn't just about finding the next deal or crunching the numbers on one property. It's really about intentionally building this robust living infrastructure of people and systems around you.
Hmm.
We've seen pretty clearly that the intentional value-first approach that Ninja Way philosophy and actively working to connect people and provide solutions before asking, that's the real engine of sustainable professional success. It seems to accelerate your growth and your net worth far more effectively than just focusing on individual transactions.
Absolutely. And we detail the critical necessity of assembling that team of trusted experts. Everyone from hard money lenders who, counterintuitively, become powerful referral engines to
Hmm.
skilled agents who manage complex out-of-state deals, right down to vetting contractors not just on their price, but on their proven ability to actually listen to and execute your specific investment goals.
Yeah, and we reinforced how crucial those internal systems are for making it all work consistently. Leveraging concepts like focusing on activity-based indicators for coaching team members, using that simple 2-minute rule to build unstoppable momentum through tiny, frictionless daily habits. It's about building the machine that runs itself.
Right. Building the systems for predictable success.
Okay, so here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you, our listener, with today. Technology, particularly prop tech, is undeniably automating huge chunks of the traditional real estate transaction process. Things like property search, comparative market analysis, document management, even basic communication are becoming faster, cheaper, more automated.
We're seeing it happen rapidly.
In fact, some authors and analysts are predicting that many traditional brokers and agents, specifically those who rely primarily on just executing those hard transactional skills, might find themselves largely replaced or significantly marginalized within the next decade or so.
It's a potential disruption for sure.
So here's the question for you to think about. If technology continues to automate more and more of those transactional hard skills, how much more valuable, how much more essential will your carefully cultivated network become? Those deep relationships built on that intentional focus of giving value first, cemented by the soft skills of empathy, clear communication, and earned trust. Could that human element become the final, truly irreplaceable differentiator in your long-term real estate career?